Thanks so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Brown Girl YouTube channel. This show exists to provide representation for women of color within the environmental space, to share their stories, and to inspire all to be more eco-friendly every day. I'm your host, Ariel Green. This is where you can see all of the full video podcast episodes. So be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also, go follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl. Enjoy! Perfect. And your last name is pronounced Laryea, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Rachel Laryea. Ugh. And then, of course, I mess it up.
No, you had it right.
Okay. Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Rachel Laryea, a Ghanian woman based in Brooklyn, New York. Rachel is the founder of Kelewele, a lifestyle and food brand focused on plantain-based eats. Rachel is a plantain lover embarking on a journey at the intersection of food, culture, and community. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So before we even get into it, I want to address the age-old debate of how do you pronounce plantain? Yeah. Is it plantain or plantain?
It is, and let the record reflect for the last time, plantain.
Yes.
But, as soon as I say that, though, it really becomes like a geographic breakdown, because if you're in the Caribbean, you're likely saying plantain. But I'm West African, specifically from Ghana, and we say plantain. So depending on where you are, you'll get a pass, but I will always say that the proper pronunciation is plantain.
I like it. That's how I've always pronounced it. But then I saw a post on Instagram like last week, and people were, debating it. And they were very matter of fact saying that it's plantain. So I will take your word for it because that's the way I've been saying it. So we will say plantain throughout this interview. Sorry if people have a problem with it.
Right. They'll have to do.
Yes. So take us back to the beginning. Where or how did Kelewele come to be?
Yeah. So for me, and I always kind of talk about it as my plantain love story, which has been my lifetime in the making. It started with culture. Like I mentioned, I'm from West Africa. My family, both of my parents were born and raised in Ghana. And while I was born in the States, have always been very connected to my roots and where my family is from. And something that my mom would always do, really to kind of, especially being a migrant to this country, as a way to stay connected, was to always prepare, Ghanaian dishes, listen to Ghanaian music, dress everything to really stay rooted in home and family. And so I grew up in a very Ghanaian home in America. And that included all of the plantain dishes, and Kelewele specifically was a plantain and is a plantain street food. And it was the first plantain dish I ever had that my mom made me. And it's basically just plantains that are diced up. They're marinated in spices like ginger, some cayenne. It's very simple street food, and you fry it up to golden perfection. And it's usually accompanied with groundnuts or peanuts, and it's delicious. And I just loved it. And I have a sweet tooth. And so when you have that perfect combination of the sweet plantain with the spices, it's just really unbelievable. And so anyway, fell in love with plantains at that point. And then through different inflection points in my life, plantains just had increased significance. And so it started with that cultural piece that was very personal and specific. But then, I went on to college, and I was at NYU undergrad on a serious budget, and plantains became like an affordable, accessible food ingredient that I would just buy all the time as I was cooking and preparing meals for myself. And at that time, I also transitioned into a vegan diet. And so again, plantains became this meat and dairy substitute that I could use to, again, make just creative dishes. And that's really when I started creating new things, getting just excited about how I can use plantains in new ways than I had engaged with them before, even the way my mom prepared them. And then fast forward a few years to when I started my grad studies in 2017 as a trained anthropologist and African Americanist scholar. I started thinking a lot about how culture informs how we understand ourselves in relation to community and all the different ways culture is produced. And one of those ways is through food and different food ways. And so I had this light bulb moment of thinking how plantains can be a kind of lens into thinking about culture. And what I loved was that I can be from West Africa, the next person from Latin America, the next person somewhere from the Caribbean, but we're all eating plantains. It became this kind of globally recognized diasporic food that was more than just food. It was a way of thinking about home and family and belonging and culture in a very real material way. And so I love that. And so take all of those different inflection points together, I thought I would love to create a brand that really prioritizes health, accessibility, that's predicated on something that's familiar, but still innovative. And so that's how I kind of got going and started making different dishes. People got excited about it, started to build momentum until, we've gotten to the place that we are at now, and still, of course, a baby in its startup phases, but have been able to kind of just prove the concept in certain ways. And people have been excited about it because, it's rarely that you find someone who doesn't love plantains. And so it's just been an incredible journey thus far.
Yes, I love it. And I like how you have your background in anthropology and African American studies, and you found a way to marry that with your love of cooking and, just exploring how food relates to culture. That's super interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, when you started your business, Kelewele, I guess you haven't been classically trained for cooking, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So what's that been like having a business, a food-based business and, not necessarily having that professional background?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a learning curve. And I think for me, my creative process, it's gotten quicker, but especially when I was just first starting, it was like, okay, doing a lot of research and development. It's like, okay, I have a concept, I have an idea, but how can I really bring it together? And really kind of leveraging the resources that are just available online or in books. There's incredible chefs that have been in the game for so long that are trained and just have like the kind of fundamental baseline principles that you can apply when you're making pastries or whatever it is. And so that was really helpful. And I'll say even like the ice cream, for example, that we have, our plantain ice cream, which has been our kind of staple item that people are really kind of amazed by. That took the better part of a year to really get right and refine, and a lot of time, and especially when you're operating in the vegan space, the imperative is to make the food taste as if it's not vegan, which is to say that when people don't know it's vegan, that's when you've like done something good with it. And so it's really hard, especially with ice cream, because vegan ice creams, the prevailing issue is usually around texture and creaminess, because you're missing the kind of milk fat that you would have in the cream base. And so really working to understand the food science of it all and leveraging those resources, getting food scientists to help me understand how to, create products without that kind of training has been invaluable and definitely a necessity to, build a startup in food.
Yes. So you have the kelewele, you have the plantain ice cream. Is it mainly like dessert-based plantain dishes that you make?
Yeah, so our sweet spot is definitely our sweets.
Mhm.
And so we leave it at the ice cream. We have a number of other products that specifically we wholesale distribute to some of our cafe partners here in the city, which include our brownies and our cookies. And then we have our e-commerce sales, which offers those baked goods in addition to a dry mix, which is our brownie mix, a gluten-free version of the brownies. And so, yes, it's like definitely the sweets. And, for me, when I think about trajectory for the business, definitely doubling down on the sweets and moving in that direction and leading with the ice cream. But I'll say in the past, and people have some familiarity with some of our savory items because I had a temporary pop-up shop at DeKalb Market Hall for several months that we just closed in January. And so that was a kind of full range from plantain smoothies, appetizers, entrees, and then of course our sweets as well.
Wow. So since you had the pop-up shop, what did you learn from that? Like, did you enjoy it? Is it something that you'd want to do again, or are you going to focus more on like packaged foods?
Yeah, so many learnings from
Yeah.
that experience. Because again, it's like I'm not a restaurateur, very of learning very rapidly and then figure in a global pandemic into that. And how do you manage, driving revenue in a space? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with DeKalb Market Hall, but in a space where you're competing for customers because there's, 20 other food vendors, inches away from you. And so how do you distinguish yourself? But then also how do you leverage the traffic that is in that space, just given the dynamics that we are all living under right now? And so very challenging from that external perspective, but then internally of like, how do you manage a team and get people to really rally behind an idea that is very unique and specific to me and its conception, but for it to be something that other people can be really passionate about and commit their time to and their labor. And so, yeah, just a lot of learning from like the operational aspect of it too. What I do it again, I think, never say never. I mean, doing or having a brick and mortar in a pandemic is really tough. And so maybe if it was a different time, I'd reconsider. But, I think for me, having that opportunity actually came out of the pandemic. And so definitely served its purpose in terms of just momentum and press and all of that. But the goal has always been around consumer packaged goods and being able to have that kind of scalability and velocity and access by being in multiple places rather than having, one location, which is always great, I think, in a flagship marketing kind of way, but really hard to ramp that up and scale quickly, especially as a solo founder.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, having more options as far as, like packaged foods and snacks goes is always good because it's
Yeah.
difficult to find good, healthy snacks, that are
Hmm.
different. It's not just, like your potato chips and stuff. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I
Hmm.
can see like a huge market for a Kelewele.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my next question is revolved around how plantain-based food plays into sustainability. Is that something that you consider as you're, growing your business?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's something that I'm excited to dig more into now. I've always understood plantains to be an incredible African diasporic superfood that is sustainable, but also in kind of my bigger vision to really root the business to its roots in Ghana. Something that's I'm really excited about and getting started with in the next month is to build a plantain farm in Ghana, actually. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I'm super, super excited about that. I'm actually going to be going to Ghana at the end of March to start and get going now that we've acquired the property to do so. And so, I love to think about these things in terms of full circle supply chain sustainability and what we can do. And of course, it's all so early in the startup phase, but if I can plant those seeds now, pun intended,
Literally.
to really build a business that really figures and implements sustainability into all aspects, and really thinking and leading with people, and the people that drive these business lines is really important to me. And so I'm excited about being more intentional about that as well.
Yes, that's amazing. A whole
Thank you.
farm?
Yes, right. I'm gonna be a whole
Wow.
plantain farmer.
Wow, that is so cool. I can't wait to see how that grows and just
Yes.
like following that whole process. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. So more to come on that. Really exciting.
Yes, yes. So, speaking of ventures that you have going on, I saw on Instagram that you were going on a plantain road trip this month.
Hmm.
So, tell me about
Hmm.
that.
Oh, it was so fun. And so it was really just kind of a way for me to have a vacation and just like take a massive breath after closing the shop in January. And I thought, oh, it's great. I call my Prius Plantain the Prius. I took my Prius down the East Coast. We hit Baltimore, DC, Charlotte, and Atlanta. And I just wanted to find all of like the delicious plantain eats in all of those locations. And, coinciding with Black History Month, of course, I was really excited about finding Black owned businesses across the diaspora that resonated with me. They were doing really cool things as a way to kind of spotlight their work, and just always looking for inspiration. I think that's also so much of what I spend time doing. It's like, especially when it's like you're working so hard, sometimes you just have to take a step back and like admire and appreciate what other folks are doing, learn from other folks. And so it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. I will say the best plantains that I had on the trip were in Atlanta.
Yes.
Shout out. Shout out to Ike's Bar and Grill in Atlanta. He's got some delicious plantains. Got Kelewele on the menu. It's a Ghanaian owned business, but what's cool is that they've got Nigerian and Ghanaian dishes. And of course, they have, between the two countries, you've got the whole jollof war, right? And what's cool is they have Nigerian jollof and Ghanaian jollof on the menu, so you can settle the score. But it was just a lot of fun, and just a way for me to kind of get out but still be doing something that's relevant and kind of enriching me, and by extension, the business.
Yes. I was going to ask where was the best place because I'm in Atlanta, so I'm taking
Oh,
notes.
shoot. Wow.
Yes. Yes, I'll
And then
definitely go.
I'll say I also had some really good plantains at Pont City Market
Mm-hmm.
at El Superpan. They're actually the only vendor that has plantains that I'm aware of, because I
Yeah.
scoured the entire place. um, but they've got some really good mofongo. The Maduros are on point. So are the Tostones. I had all of them. Don't judge me. It was all really good. I'll have to give you a list.
Please.
It was impressive.
Yes, that's amazing. So when you have your plantain farm, are you just going to be supplying plantains for yourself, or are you interested in helping other people too?
Absolutely on the latter of that. So the
Mhm.
aim is it'll be both, but specifically, I envision it to be B2B business. And so to the extent that we can grow and then supply it to folks who have businesses as kind of plantain sellers within the markets, the local markets, especially in the city center in Accra. But then also how we can sell to perhaps more corporate facing organizations that are launching them for supermarkets and whatnot. Another real estate project that I have underway is and this one's going to take some more time to get up and running, but a Kelewele resort, which is in Prom Prom, which say it's about an hour away from Accra. And so the aim is to have, of course, the plantain farm really fueling the ingredients that are used for the cafe that'll be on site at that resort. And so, like I said, it's going to be a bit of both, but the lion's share will definitely be through the B2B business.
Yes. Oh my gosh, a resort girl.
Yes, yes. I'm like, I gotta get back to Ghana. Like all roads lead back
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Wow. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so
Thank you.
excited for you, seriously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. You have so many big plans, and I know that they are just going to be so successful. And I look forward to supporting you throughout your journey and, and introducing more people to you in Kelewele because, like, you are just doing something so amazing.
Thank you. That means so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us, what does being a sustainable brown or Black girl mean to you?
Oh man, it really informs the perspective that I take to entrepreneurship in its entirety. I think it's a 360 view on how I do everything that I do. I think that for me, I've always said that food is not just food, it's social, it's political, it's economic. And so I think when you're tapping into that, not only are you producing something worthwhile in how I think about it, but then also tapping into and recognizing the responsibility that I believe I have to community. And, we create value as entrepreneurs, but you also want to retain that value in the communities that produce the culture to begin with. And so the sustainability aspect, when I think about Kelewele's long-term goals, it's like, how do I make sure that the beneficiaries of this cultural production resides with those who are producing it. And then also, I think as a Black woman, it's again, how do I make sure that I am propping up, supporting, really empowering those who look like me and those who, planted these seeds in me. Kelewele, yes, it's like I created it, but it was long rooted in my mother, my grandmother, my family, everyone who has put all of this into me, all of these ideas that have manifested in this way as I've been able to do them. And so I think there's just a lot of responsibility, which is a privilege, for sure. And so that is always where I lead and how I think about intentionality and being thoughtful in business and building a business that way. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's always a 360 view of how to do business from that perspective.
Yes, perfect. I love it. Yes, it makes total sense. So
Good, good.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And please go follow Kelewele on Instagram, go to her website, keep up with everything that she's up to. All of the links will be in the show notes or the description box. And yes, thank you so much, Rachel. It's such a pleasure having you on the
Of
show.
course, of course. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yay. Okay, stop recording. There we go. Don't leave just yet. Click here to hear from another sustainable brown girl, or click here to watch the full playlist from this season.